Um,
Looks like we have 17 people, so let's wait a little bit more so that everyone can join the classroom. Okay, so let's see. I think we can get started. And so for everyone who was who came to class last week, congratulations on finishing week 1 and welcome to week 2. So for week 2, we'll be covering a lot more advanced topics, and so primarily we will be covering some of the things that we didn't finish talking about last week, including the getters and setters, also more stuff about classes and methods, and constructors, arrays, array lists, and also how to traverse through these arrays and array lists using loops. Okay, so let me share my screen. One second. How do I, okay. Trying to share my screen right now. Oh, it's, host disabled attendee screen. Probably need to claim host. Enter host key to claim host row. One second, this is not allowing me to. This is not allowing me to. Yeah, so wait a second right now, because I'm trying to see how I can make Zoom share my screen. Yeah, I don't have the host code. I don't know. Yeah, it is asking me for the host code. Okay, yeah, I just claimed host and now I can share my screen. So let me do that. Okay, can you all see my screen now? So type in the chat if you can see my screen. Okay, yeah. So today is day 4 and okay, yes. So today's day 4 and last time we finished by talking about getters, and so this is where we'll continue from this class. And one of the questions one of the students asked was what the keyword static means. So I'm gonna go over this when we go over the demo. So hopefully you guys can you guys still have the 2 classes, the Toyota.java and main.java that we set up last time. So I'm going to give you a second right now to open these 2 classes.
Oh, actually, I don't.
You don't have the classes. So how many people don't have the classes set up? Because if we
I'm doing Replit.
Oh, Replit. Okay. So let me see. Does anyone know? I'm not that familiar with Replit. Let me see how we set up how we can do new classes with Replit. So take a look. Okay, so if you're using Replit, you go to your go to the left and you'll see the main.java file. Can you see the file?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see.
So if you look at my screen here, you can see this plus sign. If you press on it, you can
Plus?
create another class.
Plus?
Yeah.
Plus? Okay, I'll try. Where's the plus? Add fold. Wait, which one do we do? Add folder or add file?
Add file.
And what do we call it?
And Toyota.java. That.
And how do we do this? Because I didn't do this yesterday.
Oh, it's fine. Let's see how many people don't have. Okay. Wait, is in Google Docs or doing files bar on the left? Yeah. So I think it would be a good idea to go over this again. So let me just go over how you can do this on Replit, and then I'll go over how you can set up two classes on Eclipse. So for this, it doesn't come with the class, so you have to write public class Toyota like that. And then you need to write public static void main. This is oh, actually never mind. So so the public static void main, the main method is only for the main class. For the Toyota class, you don't need to add that method. So for now, this is all we need to do. Okay, and then so just type in the
Wait, excuse me, I'm not done typing it out.
Okay, I'll put it here on the left so you can see it. And
done.
Okay, yeah. So for everyone who was let's just we can go over this again, but for in the Toyota class, you can just copy you can just write this, or if you haven't written this out yet, I can put this on Ed so you guys can just copy and paste what we have right now. This is code. Okay, so just copy this and paste it inside of your Toyota class. And let me briefly explain what this does.
Wait, we put it inside of Toyota, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Do we do the string S too?
Yeah, you paste the entire thing inside of your class.
Wait, which class? Toyota.
Toyota?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, done.
Okay, yeah. So what this does is it creates variables. So like for instance here, that this S is, you don't need to worry about this right now. So private static string model, this is just a variable called model, and we have not yet set the value for this. And then type year, color, horsepower, seats, these are all variables. And then this is a constructor. Constructor basically initializes the variables based on the user's input. And this is a getter. This allows you to get a certain variable's value when it is private. When it's public, you can just directly access it. But when it's private, you need to use a getter. And this is another getter. So this getter, get model, gives you the variable model. This gives you the value inside a model. And then get type gives you the value inside of type. okay? And this is our main class. So everything will be run inside of the main method inside the main class. So here we're creating a instance instance of Toyota called T, and then we're printing this instance. Okay, so this is where we left off at last time. We were talking about creating the class Toyota and adding the variables and also making the getters. Now, one of the questions that someone asked last time, and I didn't really want to answer it because it wasn't really important last time, but this time it'll be a little bit more important because we're creating more instances of this class. And the question was what this static keyword does. And on my slides here, if you look at the definition for static versus non-static, static just means that this variable or method belongs to the class. And non-static means that this variable or method belongs to the instance of the class. And there's a big difference between these two, and I'll show you what the difference is. Okay, so over here, let's say we created let's just say, let's make these, okay, we'll keep these variables as static, but here in the constructor, we'll not just set these to the default values, but instead we're going to make the user pass in parameters and set these values to the parameters that the users pass in. Okay, so in order to add parameters, we have to write all of our inputs inside of this parentheses here. So let's say if we want to add a string, and we'll call it M, string M, and then we want to make this model M. So what are we going to write here? We're just going to set, instead of setting model to Prius, we'll set model to M. Okay, so we just set model to M. And I'm going to change all of these values later on, but for now, I'm just going to set model to M. And over here, let's say, now this is giving me an error because this constructor doesn't work if you don't pass in an input. So now we'll just say we're going to pass in Prius. And if we create a new instance and make the model Prius, and when we try to print the instance, here it's going to give us Prius, right? It gave us Prius. Now, what happens if let's say I create another instance called T1 equals new Toyota, and then I'm going to call this another model. What is a Toyota model that I'm not really let's see what Toyota models. Okay, Corolla. Okay, so we're gonna call this, instead of the Prius, we're gonna call it Corolla. So Toyota
I have an error.
What does it say?
It says error semicolon expected Toyota Toyota T new Toyota Prius. I put semicolon though.
Yeah, did you so can you try let me copy this code so you can try this. So and anyone, if you haven't wrote the code already, then that's totally fine, because I'll post this on Ed. So you can, if you're having errors or haven't wrote it yet, then just copy this code into your main method inside of your main class. Okay, yeah, so try running this again, and I don't think you'll experience any errors because it's not giving me any errors on my side. Okay.
It just gave me 2 errors.
Okay, it could be because your Toyota and so if you're using Replit, your Toyota and main class could not be in the same folder. That could be a reason. Let me try to see.
What?
Let me try to see if it will run for me. If I put this in here. I put this in here. Waiting for it to run. Okay, it's giving, let's see, error constructor Toyota cannot be applied to given types. Actual and former. It's new Corolla. Let me try creating a new folder calling this classes, and I'm gonna put both of these inside of this folder. Okay, so also putting this file. Let's just it's not allowing me to drag. Let me just create another class directly inside of here. Main.java. Let's see. Okay, let me see. I think the reason why it's giving me this error is because this main class is already it's a default class that Replit creates for you, so it doesn't allow you to delete this. But so you can delete any other class, but you can't delete.
I accidentally deleted the Toyota.java class.
Okay, let me see how I can move this to. Yeah, I'm not really good with Replit, and so I'm trying to find out how this works. But usually the reason, so if you write all of your code correctly and it still doesn't run, usually it's because, or it could it be that these are not properly indented? Let's see, could be that. Okay, some people are saying it doesn't work on Eclipse. Okay. So all of this, Yeah, it's working for me too, but I don't know why it's not working for some people. Let me try to, I think the constructor has the parameter on Replit. Oh, right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I forgot to include the constructor parameter on Replit. Yeah. Yeah, that was a great catch. So for the people, so if it's not running for you on Replit, go to your Toyota class and go to public Toyota. So go to your constructor. And you have to include your parameters in here. Right, because you can pass in a parameter and not have not have it accept any parameters here. So in here, write string m, and then instead of setting model to Prius, just set it to m. I think, yeah, that was a problem. So if you run it, then see, it's gonna give you Prius. So do that and let me know how it works. So I'm gonna go back to Eclipse.
Works.
Yeah, great. So yeah, that was a problem. So every time you have so that's one of the things about constructors is you have to have exactly the same amount of parameters inside of your constructor compared to when you're creating a new instance. You have to have the exact same amount and also the exact same type. So here we're saying that.
Why is all my code gray?
What's that?
All my code is gray. Like black. How come your code is different colors?
Oh, I think it's that way on Replit.
How come yours has, like, your code on the Replit has different colors and my code is just black?
Oh no, it should be some kind of setting.
Yeah, it probably is some, because is your code running?
Yes, it's running. It's just
Okay.
black.
So if your code is running, then I shouldn't worry about that. Because like I don't know how to fix that either. I think as long as it's running, then like the color doesn't really matter. So if your code is already running, then yes, then I think it's fine. Yeah, but you need to have the same type and number of variables for your constructor input as when you're creating a new instance of the method of the class. So Toyota T equals new Prius, we're inputting Prius as the parameter and we're printing t.get model. So we're getting the model. And then we're creating another instance of the class called T1 and we're inputting Corolla. So now what happens if we say system.out.println t1.get model? Okay, so type what you think is going to be printed in the chat. Let's see what people think would get printed. Okay, so just so what do you think would get printed for this statement? So Jacob says Prius Corolla. Does everyone else agree? Corolla. So so I'm talking about after this entire code. So everything is run, what's going to get printed. And so actually, I think, Jacob, your answer is right because, yeah, it's Prius and then on another line, it's Corolla because we're creating this instance and we're calling the model Prius. And if we print the model, it's going to give us Prius. And then it's going to create a new line. We create a different instance, we call it Corolla. And here it's going to print t1.get model. So the second instance model is Corolla. So it's going to print Prius and then Corolla. So if we run this, Prius, Corolla. Okay. Now, and this is a part that I want you to pay very close attention to because this is extremely important. So, and this is related to the word static. So pay very close attention here. So what happens, what do you think would happen if I like deleted the print here and instead I put it under, or yeah, I put it under here. So I create instance t, I create instance t1, and then I print the get model of t1, and then I print the get model of t. So type what you think would be printed in the chat. Okay, so we have a lot of people saying, okay, we have Corolla, Prius. They were supposed to be together. Prius, Corolla, Prius. Right. So this is actually not going to print Corolla, Prius. This is actually going to print Corolla. And if I run this, it's printing Corolla. So why do you think it did that? And a hint would be it has to do with that it has to do with the static keyword. Like it might seem really weird to you why Prius belongs to the instance T1 and Corolla belongs to the instance, Prius belongs to the instance T and Corolla belongs to the instance T1. Yet when I printed the model of the instance T, it still gave us Corolla. And the reason why is because of the static keyword here. So let me just do something. Let's say I delete this static. If I delete this static here, and if I run it now it's going to give me Corolla and Prius instead of Corolla and Corolla. So watch. Now it's giving me Corolla and Prius. And the reason why it's doing this is because when I add the static keyword, this is telling the computer that I'm setting the not just the model for this specific instance to Prius over here. I'm setting the model for this entire class to be Prius. So that means that no matter what method or what instance I use, it's always going to give me Prius. And now after I set this to Corolla, it's telling it that I'm setting the entire class variable to Corolla. So this is going to change. So the value of this model is going to change from Prius to Corolla for all of the instances. So that's why when we have the static here, when we print get model, it's going to change it. It's going to print t.get model. It's still going to print Corolla. However, if we delete this static here, this means that this variable is independent for every single instance of this class. So that's why if we change this to Prius, it only changes the model variable, the model for T. And if we do Corolla, it's only going to change it for the model for T1. So that's why if we print this, it's going to give us Corolla and then Prius. You're changing M twice, then printing Corolla twice. Right, so you're changing the model twice, but the difference here is whether you're messing with the specific instance or you're messing with the class. So static means that you're changing the variable for the entire class. Doesn't matter the instance, it's always going to be what you set it. And if you don't have the static here, it's going to be setting the variable for that specific instance, meaning that it won't affect any other instances. So for this particular example, it would be more appropriate for us to delete the static for all the variables because we want each different instance to have a different model, a different type, a different year, color, horsepower, and a different number of seats. Okay, so that's the static keyword. That's the static keyword. Okay, and then, okay, so static is just means that this variable or method belongs to the class, and non-static means this variable or method belongs to the instance. Okay. So last class we talked a little bit about getters, and today we're gonna talk about setters. So the point that we want to use setters is to set a value for a variable from a different class. And for instance, let's just say that okay, so let me delete this static here. Okay, so let's just say, for instance, we want to allow the user to change the value for model. So over here we have get model, and now we need to have a set model. So the field is going to be public, and the return type is going to be void because the method is not going to return anything. It's just going to set the value for this variable. So we're going to say public void, and instead of get model, this is going to be called set model. And now we need to have an input. So we need a string model. Now, or let's just call this M for now. Okay, so this input basically means this is whatever the user inputs here is just what they want to set the variable model to. So what do you think we want to do inside of this method? Any ideas? Well, it's a setter, right? So what do you think model equals M? Exactly. We want to set the model equal to M. Yeah, that's great. That's exactly what we want to do because we're using this setter to set this variable to whatever the user inputs. Okay, so now let's say what happens if we change, okay, and this is a fun question. So what happens if we change this to model here, and then we change this to model? Okay, and Java is going to give us this thing here, and it's going to say the assignment to variable model has no effect. So why do you think it's giving us this? When we're trying to assign model to model, why is it telling us that essentially this code is not going to be run? You're doing nothing, but why is Java confused? So Java's confused because the names of your input variable and the class variable are the same. So basically, what you want to do is set this model, set the value of this model to this model. Say the user inputs a Prius. You want to set Prius to this model right here. So usually what we would do is to use this dot keyword to make this less confusing. Or what you could do is to just change the name of this input and say string M, this dot model equals M.
I have 3 errors.
You have 3 errors?
Yeah.
What does the error say?
Toyota slash Toyota.java slash Toyota.java 34 error class interface or enum expected. Public static string get type. What's that?
So let's see. Let me think about. Okay, so was there any error before you type the setter?
No.
Okay, and did you write the setter correctly? So public void set model and then string model and then this dot model equals model and then parentheses.
No.
Try typing it. Try typing it the way that I have it here.
Okay, I just did.
Okay. And also,
There's still an error.
did you delete the static keyword on your? So here it should say private string model. So it's very important for you to delete the static keyword.
Huh? Private string model? What? Where?
So on
Wait,
the top. So on the top of the class.
Do you delete the static of all of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now try running it again.
There's still an error.
What does it
3
say?
errors. It says it's Toyota Java slash Toyota Java 34 error class interface or enum expected. Public static string get type.
Yeah, so I think the error is, so if you remove your static keyword from your variables, you also need to remove it from your getters. So over here, get model, right? Public string.
There's no static.
Yeah, you need to delete that static.
There's no, oh, it's the static? Oh, there.
Yeah, so delete that static. And then for your get type, also delete the static.
Type. Where's the get type?
Get type is under your set model. If you follow what I.
Yeah, I did it.
Now I think you should be fine.
Nope, there's still 3 errors.
Right. Let's see. So anyone else having errors with this? Okay, let's see. I'm trying to think of why it's giving you errors. So can you check to see if your Toyota class is written the same way as mine over here?
Yeah, it is.
So everything is written the same way?
What?
Is everything written the same way as my Toyota class?
Yeah.
How about the main class?
Main?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so I think it's definitely there's something sometimes with programming there could be really small details and like there's something wrong but you wouldn't notice it. So let me post this again, and so I would recommend trying to copy. So yeah, actually, so just copy this. This is the latest code for the Toyota class. Try copying this and then running it, and tell me if you have any other errors. So sometimes you have to be really exact with like a lot of the keywords. Every single keyword in Java is very like public and then class. Public means that this is defines a scope, and then class and Toyota is the name, and then open brackets, like every single word, every single character that you type is really important. And if you type something wrong, then the entire program wouldn't work. So it's not really, it's not like writing an essay where you could use a lot of different words and you can have synonyms. Like for programming, it has to be really exact. So try using what I wrote here and see if it works. Is it running?
Yeah.
So
There's one error. Reached end of file while parsing.
okay, so that's because you don't, that's probably because you don't have enough parameters. So you have to make sure you copy all of the code that I just wrote inside of your Toyota class. So paste that and run.
Okay.
So you have to have an open bracket, you have to have a closing bracket, and you have to write everything inside of that those two brackets. Yeah, and I just paste the code inside of my replit, and it's not giving me any errors.
No errors. But
Okay,
it's not
great.
doing anything either.
So it's not printing. So yeah, that's fine. So
Actually, it just did. It just did it.
printed Prius, right?
Yeah, Prius, Corolla, and Prius.
Okay, that's great because for now it's supposed to print Corolla and Prius. Yeah, and then so for the setter here, if you want to use the same name for the method parameter as your class variable, then you have to use the this in front of the class variable. So say this dot model equals model. Okay, so that's the setter. Now, how would you write the setter for the so to set the type? Well, to set the type, it's the same as to set the model, except the name is different. So here, so follow along and type public void set type. And here we're gonna also input a string, but now this string is gonna be type. So we're gonna set this dot type equals type. Okay. Now, so type this. This should allow you to set the type of the card to any string. Now, if you go back to the main method and say,
Excuse me, I was just gonna type out the code.
okay, go ahead. So I was saying, after you write this code inside of your Toyota class, now you have now you'll be able to use it inside of your main method to set your type to anything. Okay. Mark is saying, Mark, do you have to go? Okay.
I'm not done. Done.
Okay. Yeah. Now, everyone go back to your main class and let's use this setter to set the value of type to something else. Let's say you want to set this instance T1, the type of this instance T1 to something. So let's say, let's delete this here and say system.out.println T1.get type. So this gets you the type. If you print this, it's going to give you a compact, right? Now, if you change this to T1 and then you change the type by saying T1, which is the name of the instance, and then set type, you're calling this method and you enter the type here. Now it's asking us for a type because in the Toyota class, we entered the type, right? So if you enter type here, say, instead of compact, say sports. Now, if you do T1.get type, it's going to give you sports because it edited this type to become sport. So that is getters and setters. And any questions so far? If you have questions, type it in the chat, like anything you are uncertain about.
Even error.
The set type and get type is not.
Get type. I did get model. Wait, the set type is an error.
Well, do you have all of the 4 methods in here? Or, I mean, for now, you can just have these 2. So the get type and the set type.
Yeah, I did that.
And then in the main, you want to do create an instance called T1. So Toyota T1 equals new Toyota Corolla.
I didn't do that.
Yeah, you want to create that instance. So type this.
Toyota T equals.
Set type and get type. Okay, great, you fixed it. Okay. I think you may write, maybe writing string in lowercase. Yeah, that could be. Let's see if it runs after he writes the method, after he writes the instance. Okay, is it working for you now?
I'm not done typing.
So just do this line here. You don't need to write anything else.
Okay.
Okay, do we have, yeah, go ahead.
Done.
Okay, and run it to see if it's working.
Well, yeah, it's working.
Okay, yeah. So any other questions with classes, the contents of classes, and also any questions with how to use classes from other classes, how to create instances of classes from other classes?
It's not. Oh. There's an error.
Is it
it says symbol, method, set type, string, location, variable T1 of type Toyota. What?
Type. So go back to your Toyota class and check if your string is capitalized.
String. Yeah, string is capitalized.
And so in your, so did you write? Yeah, it's really tricky for me to see what your error is because I couldn't see your screen. But
Is screen sharing disabled?
so yeah, what did you write the T1 dot set type sports?
Yes. T1 dot set type.
Yeah, so set type is
Yeah, I did that.
okay. So yeah, it seems like people are not, their set type is not working. Okay, there must be something inside of your code that's okay. Yeah, it's working for a lot of people, but for some people it's not working. So I think it definitely has to do with um set type. Do you guys have any ideas like what his problem could be? I couldn't think of anything. Do you have the get type method?
I accidentally deleted my code. Oh my god, I'm so dumb. I deleted my code.
Just do Command Z.
Command Z.
Are you, what computer are you using?
Windows.
Oh, Control Z then.
It's not work.
So press Control Z again.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay,
Close.
working for
No.
some people. So I think the reason why it's not working right now is definitely because there's something that you typed wrong. And I really want to get to talking about arrays. So I'm going to post all this code afterwards and you can just try it and let me know if you have more questions. So, but I think for now, I want to create a brand new project. So just creating a brand new project, talking about arrays because that's our main focus for today. So let me go back to the slides for now. And if your program doesn't work, then you can just copy my code from Ed, which I'll post later. Okay, constructors. Yeah, we talked about constructors. Constructors is just a special method used to initialize objects in Java. We did the demo. Okay. So right now, if any of your code doesn't work, then just focus on this because this is really important. So think about this hypothetical scenario. So say if you're going to grocery shopping and you want to store everything you need to buy in your phone in order to remind you. How will you do so, and what do you think your phone will do? So that just means like, what do you think your phone is doing behind the scenes after you type all the items in there, how it's storing them? So think about it. I'm gonna use the chat. So if you have an idea, then type it in your chat. Yeah, don't worry about the name for now. I haven't created it yet. We're gonna create the project later. Right now, just think about this scenario. So what do you think? What do you guys think about what your phone is doing? Well, it's gonna store your items in a list, right? Maybe I will note down the items. Yeah, if you note down the items, yeah, and you're gonna use an array. Now, arrays are just another word for lists, but that's just what we call them in Java. And whenever you want to store a list of items, that's when you're gonna use arrays. And later we're gonna talk about
This.
something
It's
called
this.
array lists, but
This is the recording. I'll delete it.
yeah, we're gonna talk about array lists later, but so that's gonna be a more advanced version of arrays. But for now, we're just gonna talk about arrays. So it's a way for us to store a list of items, and you're gonna see in a second why it's so useful. So let me exit this here, and we're gonna create a new Java project. Okay, so just click on the little X here if you're using Eclipse to stop, to just save and save these projects, and then because we want to use this space to create new projects. Okay. And for people using Replit, just start a new Replit project. But for people using Eclipse, we want to do new and then Java project. And for this project, we're going to call this arrays. We're not going to mess with this and just click finish. We don't don't create any modules. So press don't create. Okay, and after you do that, you're going to see you have this arrays folder. So press on this here. It's going to open this folder, and you want to create your class inside of the SRC folder. So right click on this, press new, and then do class. And you need to have a name for your class. So we're just going to call our class array demo. And we want the public static void main method to be created. So check this box, and once you press finish, you're going to be having this class and the main method. Let's move the console to the bottom. Okay, so let's just first talk about why you want to use arrays. So let's say if you want to have items, you want to store items in your phone. And one way you can do this is by saying string item1 equals, and then whatever the name of the item is, let's just say it's milk. You want to buy some milk. And then string item2 is equal to coffee. You want to buy some coffee. And string item3 is equal to eggs. Okay. And string item4 is you want to buy some bacon, and so on, so on, and so on. So the problem with setting all of your items that you want to buy using variables is that it's really time consuming, and you don't really know the exact variable name for each of them. So it's really hard to access them. And that's why we want to use arrays instead. So the way that you declare an array is the same way that you use declaring a variable, but you're going to see that there's a little bit of difference. So you would type so for instance, if you want to do an array of strings, you would type string and then open and close brackets. This just means that this is an array. And then you give it the name, like here the type, and then you give it the name. So let's just say items. Let's call this items equals, and then you want this these brackets here, and then you want to write whatever you want to put in the list inside of here. So let's say if we want to put milk, you do milk, semicolon, and then or colon, and then coffee, eggs, bacon. So that's everything that we want to put inside of our items. Now, if we do system.out.println items, what do you think would happen? What do you think would happen if we try to print items, if we run this code? So it wouldn't work, right? And that's the right answer, and wouldn't work because it would give you something that you wouldn't really understand. If you just press this, it's going to give you a bunch of things that java.lang.string and then a bunch of stuff that you don't really care about. So, and like Jacob said, in order for us to access the items in this list, we need to access each and every one of them specifically. So if we want to say milk, if we want to access milk, we have to give it the index of milk. If we want to access coffee, we have to give it the index of coffee. Okay, so let me go to a board here and kind of demonstrate how elements are stored in arrays. Let me go to this board here and draw and give you guys a better understanding of why arrays work. Okay, now let's say we created a array, and this array has a length of 5. So this array will store 5 items. And let's make this hollow so we can write our elements in here. And then, so this is slot 1, slot 1, slot 2, slot 2, slot 3, slot 4, slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, slot 4, slot 5. These are our slots. And then let's say inside of each slot, let me take a look here of what we want to store. So the first item is milk. So the milk would be, let me use this typing function here. Milk, right? Milk is going to be stored in here. And then let's just say, okay, the second one is going to be coffee. And then this one is eggs. And the fourth one is bacon. Okay, actually, I can, well, let me go back. Okay, so for now, it's only going to have 4 elements instead of 5. And the way that the index work in Java is instead of starting at 1, which is what we usually think about in real life, Java starts at, indices in Java starts at 0. So the index of this element is 0. The second index is 1. The third index is 2. The fourth index is 3. And the fifth one is going to be 4. So when you want to access the first element, instead of saying items and then 1, it's going to be items 0. Okay, let me demonstrate here. So let's say you want to print the first element, which is milk. You would do items and then brackets. Inside of this brackets, you're going to write the index of this element. So here it's going to be 0. If you run this, it's going to print milk. And if you do 1, it's going to print coffee. If you do 2, it's going to print eggs. And then if you print 3, it's going to give you bacon. Okay. Another way, something else that you could do with arrays is you can print the length of this array. So you would do items dot length. That's how you print the length of this array. Okay, if you do this, it's going to give you 4 because there's 4 elements in this array, right? So another thing that I want to talk about regarding arrays is a different way for you to declare the arrays. So let's say you don't really know at the time that you declared the array that you like what elements you want to store in here. So instead of using this brackets and specifying the specific things you want to store, you can just type new string. And then you have to specify the dimensions of this array. So one thing with arrays is it cannot be contracted, nor can it be expanded. So the length that you specify here at the beginning will be your length. So this length will be permanent. So let's say we want to have a length of 4 because we're storing 4 elements. Okay, and in order to add elements to an array, to add or change elements, we're just going to write items, the name of the list, the name of the list, the name of the array, and then we're going to give it the index number, and we're going to set this to, instead of milk, let's set this to chocolate milk. And then now if we just print this, items 0, it's going to give us chocolate milk. So that's how we set items in arrays. Well, actually, this first element is initially empty. So if we set it to chocolate milk, it's going to just set it from empty to chocolate milk. And then we could set the other elements. We can just copy and paste. We set the first element to 1. The second element is index 1, and we want to set this to coffee. And then the third element is index 2. We want to set this to eggs. And then the final element, the fourth element, has an index 3, and we set this to bacon. Okay, right? And then, so if we print all of the elements, it's going to give us all of the items in our list. Chocolate milk, coffee, eggs, and bacon. So any questions so far about arrays? Okay. So we all understand how arrays work. Great. And then I'll introduce more complicated things you can do with arrays later on as we, like if we need them, I'm going to introduce them along the way. But now let's just do some practice problems with arrays. So I want you all to go to this website, Coding Bat. It's where we were doing practice problems last time. I'm going to paste this link in the chat, and you can go to, so if you click on it, it'll lead you to this website. And so try practicing the first problem. So take like I'll give you, this is relatively easy. I'll give you 1 minute to, or 2 minutes. I'll give you 2 minutes to complete this problem and then we'll go over it together. Yeah, I just pasted the link in there. Yeah, in the meantime, I'll use the restroom really quickly. So I'll be back in, I'll be back in 1 minute. Has anyone completed and wants to share their solution? So if you want to share your solution, just paste it in the chat. And if not, I'm just going to go over the problem. Okay, so you're given this array called nums, and it's asking you to return true if 6 appears as either the first or last element in the array. Okay, so we can just use a simple if statement. So if nums, and then we get the first element, which is element 0 equals 6, or we have to use an or here because it's saying either or, so or, and then we want to do nums. And then anyone have any ideas what index number we want to put here? I'm just going to say equals 6 for now. Okay, -1. And what -1 does is it just gives you the last element of the array. Okay. And then, and you, yeah, exactly. You could also use the length of the array. That's what I was thinking of. So if you use the length of the array, how you would get that is just say nums dot length. Well, it's not exactly the length of the array. There's one thing that you still have to do. Because if you think about it, if you have an array of length 4, right, the elements are going to go from 0 to 3. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3. So you have to subtract 1. Length minus 1, return true. And then else, return false. You could do this, or you could just type it below because, and then just like return false, kind of like return false. So that would also work. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so I'm just going to do it so we could get to more problems. And if you have any questions, just ask. Given an array of ints, return true if the array is length 1 or more, and the first element and last elements are equal. Okay, so there has to be 3 conditions to be met in order for us to return true. So the first condition is the length has to be greater or equal to 1. So let's say nums.length is greater than or equal to 1. And then the second condition is and the first and last elements are equal. So nums 0 equals nums nums.length minus 1. Then we're going to return true. And then else we're just going to return false. Okay. The third problem, return an int array length 3 containing the first digits of pi. So notice here that it didn't give us any inputs, so we're just going to have to return this array, create an array, and then return it. So since it's the 3 digits, it's going to be int. So the type will be int, and then we're going to name this pi array. You can name this whatever you want. Equals, you could do equals new int and then 3, and then add them later on. But an easier way that you can do this is just directly specify the elements. So 3, 1, 4. And then return pi array. Okay, so that was successful. So again, declaring a array, initializing it with the values 3, 1, and 4, and then returning that array. Okay, let's look at problem 4. Given 2 arrays of ints, a and b, return true if they have the same first element or they have the same last elements. Both arrays will be length 1 or more. Okay, so for this problem, what we need to do is return true if they have the first elements equal or the last elements equal. So we're going to compare if a 0 equals b 0 or, because it's saying or they have the same last element, so or a dot length, or here let's try -1, that's just the last element, equals b -1, return true, then return false. Okay, it's giving us, saying that, okay, so -1, yeah, I think -1 doesn't work because it's not a valid index. So we still have to write a dot length -1 and then b dot length -1. Okay, that works. Given an array of ints length 3, return the sum of all the elements. The sum of all the elements. So here we don't actually need to use a loop, which is something we'll get to talk about next time. But here, since there's only 3 elements, we're just going to return nums 0. We're getting the first element, plus nums 1, we're getting the second element, and nums 2, we're getting the third element. Okay. Given an array of ints length 3, return an array with the elements rotated left. So 1, 2, 3 yields 2, 3, 1. So basically you're shifting all the elements to the left by 1. And the first one would just end up at the end. So 1, 2, 3 would end up as 2, 3, 1. 5, 11, 9 would end up as 11, 9, 5. Okay, so let's declare a new array for this problem. So let's say int new array, and you could call this whatever you want, equals new, and we want the length to be 3. So we want to set the first element of the new array to be the second element of the nums array, right? Because we're shifting everything to the left by 1. So new array 0 equals nums array 1. Then new array 1 equals nums array 2. And then new array 2 equals nums array 0. Okay, and now our new array is set up. We can just return this new array, and that should work. Oh, it's not called nums array. I don't know why I was using nums array. It's just called nums. Yeah. Okay. And I think we have time for one more. So let me do one more of these. And I would recommend it if you do more practice with the rest, and that would be really helpful. Given an array of ints length 3, return a new array with the elements in reverse order. So this becomes, okay, so that was the same as the last one. We can do the exact same, except we just kind of switching up the orders. Int new. So if you need to leave now, then you can just go. That's absolutely fine. New array equals new int. And then the length of this array is 3. And then we want to set the first element of this array to be nums 2. So we're setting the first element to the last element, and then we're setting the last element to the first element of the nums array. And then finally, this the middle element would be the same, because it wouldn't change anything if we flip the array. So we're going to return our new array. Okay, so let's see how many problems we were able to get to. So we covered 7 problems, and there's a lot more here. So if you feel like you need more practice with arrays, then like there's a lot more practice problems here. And so any questions, other questions? Okay, so seems like there's no other questions, and arrays is actually a very easy concept, and it's also very easy to implement in Java. So I think it's as expected that you guys are not having any questions so far, but next time as we talk about array list and also loops, so traversing arrays and getting into more complicated topics, I think you guys will have a lot more questions, but feel free to ask me any questions you have with what we learned so far. If you come up with anything after class. So thank you so much for coming to class, and I'll just end the class here. Well, if you don't have any questions, then you should be you're allowed to leave.